My son took my keys on a Tuesday, and I didn't understand why until it was too late. Thomas arrived at my house just after breakfast, which was unusual. He had his own key, of course, but he rang the bell first, waited for me to answer. That should have been my warning. The formal politeness, the way he smiled but didn't meet my eyes when I opened the door. "Morning, Mum," he said. "We need to talk." I stepped back to let him in. My hip ached that morning the way it did when rain was coming. I'd been standing at the kitchen counter, sorting through the mail I'd been avoiding for weeks. Bills mostly, a few catalogues, nothing that couldn't wait. Thomas walked past me into the living room, didn't take off his coat. Another sign I missed. "I've arranged a place for you," he said, turning to face me. "Just temporarily, until we figure things out." The words didn't make sense at first. I stood there holding a catalogue, Home and Garden, thinking about the petunias I'd meant to plant in the spring, thinking this was about something else, a vacation maybe, some kind of assisted living tour he wanted me to see. "A place?" I said. "Greenfield Manor. It's very nice, Mum. Clean, good staff, you'll have your own room." That's when I understood. Not a tour, not temporary. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. He had papers in his hand. I hadn't noticed them before, legal-sized, folded in thirds. He unfolded them slowly, deliberately, the way you'd show a child why they couldn't have candy before dinner. "I have power of attorney," he said. "You signed it, remember, 3 years ago after Dad died." I did remember. The lawyer's office, Thomas saying it was just in case, just to make things easier if I got sick. I'd been grieving, exhausted. I signed because it seemed reasonable, because I trusted him, because I couldn't imagine my own son would use it to lock me away. "This is for your safety," Thomas said. "You can't manage on your own anymore." I wanted to argue, to tell him I'd been managing just fine, that I paid my bills, that I cooked my own meals, that the only thing wrong with me was 79 years of living and a hip that complained about weather. But something in his face stopped me. A certainty, a decision already made. "Your things are packed," he said. "The car's outside." That's when I saw the suitcase by the door. My brown one, the one I'd used for trips to see my sister in Maine before she died. Someone had been in my house, going through my closets, choosing what I'd need and what I wouldn't. Thomas. "I'll take your phone too," he said, holding out his hand. "Just for now, until you're settled." I should have refused. Should have called someone, anyone, but who? My sister was dead. My husband Robert was 8 years in the ground. My friends from Bridge Club were scattered into their own struggles with age and children and the slow narrowing of life. I handed him the phone. He took my keys next. House keys, car keys, the small key to the lockbox where I kept important papers. All of it, went into his coat pocket with a soft metallic clink that sounded like a door closing. The ride to Greenfield Manor took 40 minutes. Thomas drove. I sat in the passenger seat and watched my neighbourhood disappear behind us. Mrs. Patterson's house with the blue shutters, the corner store where I bought milk, the library, the park where Robert and I used to walk on Sunday mornings, back when walking didn't hurt, back when we had Sunday mornings together. Thomas talked the whole way about the facility, the activities, the meals, how I'd make friends, how I'd be safer, how this was really for the best. I stopped listening after the first 5 minutes. Instead, I looked out the window and felt something inside me going quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. The kind of silence that comes when you realize screaming won't help. Greenfield Manor sat at the end of a long driveway lined with maples. Red brick, white columns, flowers in neat beds. It looked like a hotel, the kind you'd see in a brochure about pleasant retirements and golden years. The kind of place that worked very hard not to look like what it was. A woman in scrubs met us at the entrance. Young, maybe 30, smiled too much, called me Mrs. Patterson even though Thomas corrected her twice. "We're so glad you're here," she said, taking my arm as though I couldn't walk on my own. I pulled away gently. I wasn't ready to make a scene. Not yet. They showed me to my room on the second floor. Small. A bed, a dresser, a chair by the window that looked out over the parking lot. Someone had already unpacked my suitcase. My clothes hung in the narrow closet. My toiletries sat on the bathroom counter in a neat row. Thomas left after an hour. Said he'd visit soon. Said he'd handle everything. Said I should rest. The door closed behind him with a soft pneumatic hiss, the kind of sound that told me it locked automatically from the outside. I sat in the chair by the window and understood what I'd lost. Not just my house, not just my car or my phone or my keys. I'd lost the right to choose what time I woke up, what I eat for breakfast, whether I wanted to sit in my own living room and watch the birds at the feeder Robert had hung 20 years ago. I'd lost the ability to walk to the corner store at 9 o'clock at night because I wanted ice cream. I'd lost permission to be alone. The first week passed in a fog. Meals arrived at fixed times, breakfast at 7:30, lunch at noon, dinner at 5. The food tasted like nothing. They called me by my first name without asking. "Doris, time for your pills. Doris, you have activities in the lounge. Doris, we need to check your blood pressure." I stopped correcting them after the 3rd day. On the 8th morning, I put on my coat to go for a walk. Not far, just down the hallway, maybe outside if they'd let me. I slipped my hand into the pocket to check for tissues and felt paper, thick paper, The corner of something I didn't remember putting there. I pulled it out slowly. A lottery ticket, blue and white, numbers I didn't recognize. The date said March 15th, 3 weeks before Thomas had come to my house with his papers and his plans. I'd bought it at the corner store. I remembered now, Mrs. Chen behind the counter asking if I wanted my usual and me saying yes. +1 Powerball ticket, because why not? Because Robert and I used to joke about what we'd do if we won. Silly dreams. A house on the coast, travel, grandchildren's college funds. I'd shoved it in my coat pocket and forgotten about it completely. I stood there in the hallway of Greenfield Manor, holding that ticket, and something shifted in my chest. Not hope exactly, not yet, but curiosity. A small, bright question. What if? The activities room had a computer, old, slow, but it worked. I waited until afternoon when most residents were napping, logged on with the password taped to the monitor, Greenfield 2020, so much for security, and pulled up the lottery website. My hands shook as I typed the numbers. 61, 43, 17, 93, Powerball 27. The page loaded slowly. Ads, blinking graphics. Then the winning numbers from March 15th. 61, 43, 17, 93, Powerball 27, estimated jackpot $62 million. I closed the browser, logged out, walked back to my room with careful measured steps, the ticket folded in my hand like a secret. In my room I sat on the bed and let myself think. Thomas had power of attorney. He controlled my bank accounts, my house, my investments. If I told him about the ticket, he'd claim it belonged to him, under his management, for my own good. He'd put the money somewhere I couldn't touch it, and I'd stay here in this room with its view of the parking lot until I died. But Thomas didn't know about the ticket. Nobody knew. I had $62 million. And no way to claim it, not without help, not without someone who could navigate the legal maze Thomas had built around me. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in the dark and listened to the sounds of the facility. Footsteps in the hallway, soft crying from the room next door. The buzz of fluorescent lights that never quite turned off. I thought about Robert, what he would say if he were here. Robert, who'd spent 43 years as an accountant, who'd taught me to keep records, to read contracts, to never sign anything without understanding every word. He would say, fight. Morning came slowly, grey light through the thin curtains. Breakfast at 7:30, oatmeal and weak coffee. I ate mechanically, planning. The facility had a phone in the administrative office. I'd seen it during the tour Thomas gave me on that first day. A landline, old-fashioned, sitting on the desk behind the reception area. I waited until afternoon activities. Bingo in the lounge. Most of the staff gathered there, helping residents mark their cards, calling numbers. I walked past the office. The door stood open, the desk empty. I stepped inside. My heart hammered against my ribs, loud enough I thought someone would hear it and come running, but no one came. I picked up the phone, dialed directory assistance, law offices, I said, estate planning, someone who handles elder law. The operator connected me. 3 rings. A woman answered. Brennan and Associates. I need to speak with a lawyer, I said. About... I paused. How did you explain this? About autonomy and lottery winnings. 1 moment, please. Hold music. Soft jazz that made my teeth hurt. Then a man's voice, older, steady. This is David Brennan. How can I help you? I told him everything. The power of attorney, the nursing home, the ticket, my son's control over everything I owned. I spoke quietly, quickly, afraid someone would walk by and hear me. When I finished, silence. Then Brennan said, "Where are you calling from?" Greenfield Manor, a nursing home. He put me here. Are you competent, mentally sound? Yes. The word came out sharp. I'm 79, not senile, not incompetent, just trapped. Do you still have the ticket? In my coat pocket. Don't tell anyone, don't sign anything. Can you get out? Come to my office? He took my car, my phone. I don't have money for a cab. Another pause. Then, what's the address there? I told him. I'll send someone tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Tell the staff you have a doctor's appointment. I'll have someone call to confirm. My assistant will pick you up. He'll find out. Not if we're careful, Mrs. Fletcher, Doris Fletcher. Mrs. Fletcher, what your son did is called financial exploitation of an elder. It's illegal. Power of attorney doesn't give him the right to institutionalize you against your will if you're competent. We can fix this, but I need you to trust me. Trust. Such a small word for what he was asking. Okay, I said. 2 o'clock tomorrow. Don't bring the ticket. Hide it somewhere safe. I hung up. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I walked back to my room, each step deliberate, forcing myself not to run. I hid the ticket inside a tampon box in my bathroom cabinet. They never looked there. Why would they? I was 79 years old. Biology had given me that one small privacy. The next day crawled by. Breakfast, pills. A woman named Janet trying to get me to join chair yoga. I declined, sat by my window instead, and watched the parking lot, waiting. At 1:30, the front desk called. Mrs. Fletcher, you have a doctor's appointment. Transportation is here. I'd prepared, put on my good coat, the blue one, combed my hair. I walked downstairs with careful dignity, the way I'd learned over 79 years, of being dismissed for being female, for being old, for being in the way. A black sedan waited at the entrance. A young woman stood beside it, professional, crisp suit. She opened the back door for me. Mrs. Fletcher? I'm Sarah. Mr. Brennan sent me. The drive downtown took 30 minutes. I watched the city pass by, familiar and foreign. I hadn't been outside Greenfield Manor in 12 days. 12 days since I'd chosen where I wanted to go. Brennan's office occupied the 3rd floor of a restored brownstone, mahogany and leather, bookshelves floor to ceiling. He stood when I entered, a tall man with silver hair and a firm handshake. Mrs. Fletcher, thank you for coming. He gestured to a chair. I sat. Sarah left, closing the door softly behind her. Brennan settled behind his desk. Let's start with the lottery ticket. Do you have it with you? No. You said not to bring it. Good, smart. He pulled out a legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. First, we verify the ticket. Second, we establish a blind trust to claim the winnings. Third, we protect those assets from your son's power of attorney. Fourth, we revoke that power of attorney. And fifth, we get you out of that facility. In that order? Exactly that order. Each step protects the next. He leaned forward. I need to ask you some questions. Medical history, cognitive function. We'll need to establish competency clearly and unequivocally before we challenge the power of attorney. For the next hour, he asked me questions. Who was president? What year was it? Simple math. Memory tests. He took notes. Asked about my daily routine before Thomas moved me. My medical conditions. Just the hip arthritis, well controlled with over-the-counter medication. My medications, a statin, nothing that affected cognition. You're sharp as a tack, Brennan said finally. Any judge will see that. Your son had no legal grounds to institutionalize you, but he has power of attorney. Power of attorney is a tool, not a weapon. He's supposed to act in your best interest. Locking you up when you're competent isn't your best interest, it's his. He wants control of your assets, the house, savings, investments, everything. How much are we talking about? Before the lottery, maybe 300,000. The house is paid off, worth about 250, some savings, Robert's life insurance and pension. Brennan made notes, and your son knew about all of this. He's the executor of my will. We'll change that too. He closed the legal pad. The ticket first. We need to verify it, then establish the trust before claiming. I'll need you to sign some documents. Can you get them past the facility staff? I can hide papers better than they can find them. A smile flickered across his face. I believe you. Here's what happens next. Tomorrow, Sarah will pick you up for another doctor's appointment. We'll go to the lottery office, verify the ticket, establish identity, then we set up the trust. You'll be the beneficiary, but the trust claims the winnings. That protects the money from your son's reach. How long? 2 weeks if we move fast. Maybe 3. Can you wait that long? I thought about my room at Greenfield Manor, the locked door, the fixed meal times, Thomas visiting on Sundays with his false concern and his real control. "I've waited 79 years to stop being polite," I said. "I can wait 3 more weeks." The lottery office sat in a nondescript government building downtown. Sarah and I arrived at 9 a.m. the next morning. We'd rehearsed the story. I was checking an old ticket I'd found. Didn't expect anything, just curious. The clerk scanned it. Her eyes widened. She scanned it again, called her supervisor. The supervisor looked at me, at Sarah, back at the ticket. "Ma'am, do you understand what you have here? I believe it's a winning ticket." "It's the winning ticket. 62 million. Before taxes." She led us to a private room. Forms. So many forms. Identity verification, tax documents, legal disclaimers. I signed them all with my maiden name, Doris Catherine Morrison, not Fletcher. The trust name Brennan had prepared, Morrison Family Trust. "There'll be publicity," the supervisor said. "Winners usually do a press conference." No press conference, Brennan had coached me to say. "I'm claiming through the trust. I prefer privacy." They tried to convince me otherwise. The lottery loved winners who did publicity, but it wasn't mandatory. After 2 hours of forms and verification and scanning my driver's license 3 times, they issued a payment schedule. Lump sum after taxes, $37 million, paid to the Morrison Family Trust within 30 days. I walked out of that building and felt sunlight on my face and understood what freedom cost. $37 million and the willingness to stop being nice. Back at Greenfield Manor, I returned the lottery ticket to the tampon box. Then I pulled out the power of attorney document Thomas had waved at me that first day. The one he'd made me sign 3 years ago. I read it carefully, every word, every clause. Durable power of attorney, effective immediately, no expiration date. Broad powers over financial decisions, medical decisions, living arrangements. Revocable only by the principal, me in writing, delivered to the attorney-in-fact, Thomas, and any institutions holding copies. Or revocable by court order, proving incompetence of the attorney-in-fact, or restoration of the principal's capacity to make decisions. Brennan's strategy made sense now. We couldn't just revoke it by my say-so. Thomas would ignore that. We needed a court order establishing my competency and his unfitness. The waiting began. I made a friend in week 3. Lillian, room 207, down the hall from mine. 82 years old, with hands that shook from Parkinson's, but a mind that cut through nonsense like Robert's old pruning shears through dead wood. We met at breakfast. She sat across from me and said, "You don't belong here." I looked up from my oatmeal. "Excuse me, you walk without help? You don't talk to yourself? Your eyes aren't empty, so why are you here?" For a moment I considered lying. Then I thought, what's the point? My son decided I couldn't manage on my own. Lillian snorted. Mine decided I was too expensive to keep in my apartment. Nursing homes are cheaper than assisted living. Can you believe that? I can still cook, still clean, but cheaper wins. We started sitting together at meals. Lillian told me about her daughter in Phoenix who called once a month and never visited. About her husband who died in Vietnam before she turned 25. About the dress shop she'd owned in Philadelphia for 40 years before her hands started shaking too much to thread needles. I told her about Robert, about Thomas, about the house I'd lost. I didn't tell her about the ticket, not yet. But Lillian understood something the staff didn't. We weren't patients. We were prisoners, and prisoners needed allies. On day 21, Sarah picked me up for another doctor's appointment. This time, we drove to Brennan's office. He had papers spread across his desk. "The trust is funded," he said. $37 million. Clean, protected. Your son can't touch it. The relief hit me so hard I had to sit down. It's real. It's real. Now we move to phase 2, new will, revoking the old one. Then we file to revoke the power of attorney. He slid papers across the desk. The will first. Who do you want as beneficiaries? I thought about Thomas, about the way he'd taken my keys, my phone, my life, about visiting me twice in 3 weeks and asking how I was, but never if I wanted to leave. My granddaughter, I said. Emily, Thomas's daughter. She's 19, in college. What about your son? Nothing. He gets nothing. Brennan didn't argue, just made notes. Emily gets the trust principal after your death. What about if you need money while you're alive? I want full access. I want to be able to buy a house, travel, live. Done. He drafted the will while I waited. Simple language. Emily Morrison Fletcher, sole beneficiary. Thomas Morrison Fletcher, specifically excluded. No contest clause. If Thomas challenged it, he'd get nothing. I signed it in front of Sarah and Brennan's paralegal. Witnessed, notarized, legal. Now the power of attorney, Brennan said. We need to file a petition with the court. Establish your competency. Show that your son institutionalized you without cause. Ask the judge to revoke the POA and restore full autonomy. How long? 6 to 8 weeks for a hearing, maybe longer. Courts move slowly. I've been at Greenfield for almost a month. I know. Can you wait? I thought about Lillian, about the room, with the view of the parking lot, about meals at fixed times and doors that locked, and staff who called me Doris without asking. Do I have a choice? You could leave, just walk out. But without revoking the POA, your son still controls your assets, your house, your bank accounts, everything except the trust, which he doesn't know about. You'd have money, but no legal standing to reclaim your property, so I wait. You wait. He paused. There's something else. We need to make Thomas nervous, make him think he's losing control. I have an idea. Brennan's idea involved a real estate agent, a friend of his who owed him a favour. She'd call Thomas, say she had a cash buyer interested in your house, offer asking price, quick close, see how he reacted. He'll think I'm trying to sell, I said. Exactly. He'll panic. Maybe visit you, ask questions. We'll see how far he's willing to go to maintain control. The call happened 3 days later. I wasn't there, of course, but Brennan told me about it afterward. Thomas had been confused at first, then angry. He didn't have authorization to sell the house. It wasn't his to sell. When the agent said she'd been in contact with Mrs. Fletcher, Thomas had gone quiet, then said he'd discuss it with his mother and hung up. He showed up at Greenfield Manor that Sunday. I was in the activities room with Lillian, pretending to enjoy a movie about penguins. Someone touched my shoulder. I turned. Thomas stood there, smiling. But his eyes weren't smiling. "Mum, can we talk?" Lillian looked at me. I nodded slightly. She stayed put, watching. Thomas led me to an empty corner of the lounge, kept his voice low. "I got a strange call." "A real estate agent saying you wanted to sell the house?" "Did I? You tell me. Are you trying to sell the house?" I looked at him. Really looked. At the son I'd raised, fed, loved. The boy who'd cried when his goldfish died. The teenager who'd practiced his valedictorian speech in front of me 20 times. The man who'd stood beside me at Robert's funeral and held my hand while they lowered the casket. Where had that person gone? Or had he never existed? Had I just been useful then, necessary, and now I was neither? "I might be," I said. His jaw tightened. "You can't. I have power of attorney." Power of attorney doesn't mean ownership. It means I make decisions for you about medical care, financial management, not about selling my house without my consent. "You're not capable of making these decisions." Says who? Says me. Says your doctor. I don't have a doctor here. I haven't seen a doctor since you put me in this place. That stopped him. He looked around. Lillian was still watching. A staff member at the nurses' station glanced our way. Thomas lowered his voice even more. "What's going on, Mom? Why are you being difficult?" Difficult. That word. The one men used when women stopped agreeing. "I'm not being difficult," I said. "I'm being clear. I don't want to sell the house. I want to live in it. I want to go home." "That's not safe." "Why not?" "You fell." "I tripped on the bathroom rug. Once. 3 years ago." "You can't manage bills." "I managed bills for 43 years while your father worked." "You're lonely there. I'm lonely here." He stared at me. For a moment something flickered in his face. Doubt maybe, or guilt. Then it hardened again into certainty. "I'm doing what's best for you," he said. "No, You're doing what's easiest for you." I walked away, back to Lillian, sat down. My hands were shaking, but I kept them folded in my lap where he couldn't see. Thomas left without saying goodbye. That night, Lillian came to my room. I'd told the staff I wanted privacy, but Lillian ignored the signs. She knocked once and walked in. "That was your son?" "Yes." He looked angry. He was. She sat on the edge of my bed. Her hands shook more than usual. "Doris, I'm 82. I've been a lot of places, seen a lot of things. And I know when someone's planning something." She looked at me steadily. "What are you planning?" I told her. Everything. The ticket, the trust, the lawyer, the petition to revoke the power of attorney, the new will cutting Thomas out. When I finished, Lillian was quiet for a long time. Then she smiled. "Good. That's good. Don't you dare feel guilty." I raised him. "You raised a person. What he became, that's on him." She stood. "When you get out of here, you take me with you. Deal?" "Deal." Lillian died 4 days later. I found out at breakfast. Her chair empty. A staff member touching my shoulder, saying she'd passed in her sleep. Peaceful, natural causes. Her daughter had been notified. I set down my coffee cup, went to my room, sat in the chair by the window and looked at the parking lot and felt the weight of 79 years pressing on my chest like water. She'd been my friend for 3 weeks, only 3 weeks, but in this place 3 weeks was a lifetime. They cleared out her room that afternoon. I watched from my doorway as they bagged her clothes, her photographs, her books, everything she'd been reduced to when her daughter decided nursing homes were cheaper than assisted living. I thought about the lottery ticket in my tampon box, about $37 million I hadn't told Lillian about because I was protecting myself, about the deal we'd made. "When you get out, you take me with you." Now she'd never get out. That night I couldn't sleep. I walked the hallways, long fluorescent corridors that all looked the same, doors with names, Mrs. Anderson, Mr. Chen, Ms. Rodriguez, people reduced to rooms. I thought about Robert, about Lillian, about everyone who'd believed in me who wasn't here anymore. I thought about what I was fighting for, not just money, not just the house, something bigger. The right to choose where I died, how I died, who I was before the end. At 3 a.m, I called Brennan's emergency number from the office phone. He answered on the 4th ring, groggy. "Mrs. Fletcher, how much longer?" A pause. "For the hearing?" "Yes. 4 weeks, maybe 5. The court make it faster. I can't control the court calendar." "Then find another way. File motions, emergency petitions, something, silence. Then, did something happen? My friend died. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry, be fast." I hung up. The next day Sarah picked me up. Brennan had papers for me to sign. Emergency motion for expedited hearing based on unlawful institutionalization. Affidavits from 3 doctors establishing my competency. Financial records showing Thomas had moved $30,000 from my savings account to his own. "Where did you get these?" I asked. "Your bank. Once we established the trust, we had grounds to request records." "Your son's been helping himself. Small amounts. 500 here, 1,000 there. It adds up." I signed the affidavits, the motions, everything. "This changes things," Brennan said. "Financial exploitation, embezzlement. The judge won't like that." "When's the hearing?" 2 weeks. I got us moved up. 2 weeks, 14 more days, 336 more hours. I could wait that long. I'd waited my whole life to stop being afraid of disappointing people. Thomas came back the following Sunday. I was in the activities room again, alone this time, Lillian's chair empty beside me. He sat down where she used to sit. "Mum, we need to talk about the house." "No." That agent called again. "She has a buyer. Tell her no." "It's a good offer, cash. Quick close. I think we should take it." "We?" "There's no we. It's my house." "Technically, yes, but not technically. Actually, legally, my house." He ran his hand through his hair. He looked tired, thinner. "Why are you being like this? Like what?" "Combative, unreasonable. It's not like you." "Maybe you never knew me." He stood, paced, came back. "I talked to the director here. She says you've been secretive, missing activities, making mysterious phone calls. So they'd noticed." "Of course they'd noticed. I'd been careless." "I'm allowed to make phone calls," I said. "To who? That's none of your business." "Everything about you is my business. I'm your attorney in fact, for now." He froze. "What does that mean?" I looked at him. My son, the baby I'd nursed at 2 a.m, the toddler who'd brought me dandelions, the man who'd locked me away so he could control my bank accounts. "It means I'm revoking the power of attorney." His face went white, then red. "You can't do that." "I can. I am. You're not competent to make that decision. A judge will decide that, not you." He stepped closer, voice low. "What have you done?" "What I should have done the day you took my keys." For a moment I thought he might grab me. His hands clenched, his jaw worked. Then he turned and walked out. I sat in Lillian's chair and felt my heart racing and my hands shaking, and something else. Something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Power. The hearing was scheduled for Thursday morning at 9 a.m. County Courthouse, Judge Margaret Wilson presiding. Brennan picked me up himself. I wore my good blue dress, the one I'd saved for special occasions, church, funerals. Apparently, legal emancipation from your own son counted as special. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood panelling, high ceilings, fluorescent lights that made everyone look sallow. Thomas was already there with his lawyer, a young woman in an expensive suit. They sat on one side of the aisle. Brennan and I sat on the other. The bailiff called us to order. Judge Wilson entered. Late 50s, grey hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain. She looked at the case file, then at me, then at Thomas. "This is a petition to revoke a durable power of attorney," she said, "filed by Doris Catherine Fletcher against her son, Thomas Morrison Fletchers. I've read the preliminary motions. Let's start with competency. Mr. Brennan." Brennan stood. "Your Honour, Mrs. Fletcher has been evaluated by 3 independent physicians. All 3 found her fully competent. No dementia, no cognitive impairment. She has mild arthritis. That's it." The power of attorney was granted 3 years ago under different circumstances. It's being used now to unlawfully institutionalize a competent adult against her will. Thomas's lawyer stood. "Your Honour, Mrs. Fletcher is 79 years old. She was living alone. She had difficulty managing her affairs. Mr. Fletcher was concerned for her safety." "I'd like to hear from Mrs. Fletcher," Judge Wilson said. I stood. My legs wobbled. I gripped the table. "Tell me why you want to revoke the power of attorney," the judge said. I took a breath. "I signed it 3 years ago. My husband had just died. I was grieving. My son said it was in case I got sick. I trusted him. I didn't understand he could use it to control my entire life. And now? Now he's put me in a nursing home, taken my phone, my car, my keys, my house. He moved money from my accounts to his, small amounts, but theft is theft." My voice was steady, stronger than I felt. "I'm 79, not dead, not incompetent, just old. And being old isn't a crime." Judge Wilson looked at Thomas. "Mr. Fletcher, did you move funds from your mother's accounts to your own?" Thomas stood. "Small amounts. To cover expenses. The nursing home isn't free. Did you have her permission?" "Power of attorney gives me authority." "Did you have her permission?" Silence. "No," Thomas said finally. The judge made a note. "Mr. Brennan, you filed affidavits from 3 doctors establishing competency. You've provided bank records showing unauthorized transfers. What else?" "Mrs. Fletcher wishes to live independently. She has the financial means. She has the cognitive capacity. She has the legal right." "The power of attorney is being used as a tool of control, not care. We're asking the court to revoke it and restore Mrs. Fletcher's full autonomy." Judge Wilson looked at me again. "Mrs. Fletcher, if I revoke this power of attorney, what's your plan? Where will you live?" I thought about the $37 million Thomas didn't know about the cottage by the sea I'd already found, about Emily's college fund I'd already established. "I'm buying a house," I said. "A small cottage near the ocean. I'll hire help if I need it. But it'll be my choice." "You have the funds for that?" "Yes." She didn't ask where from, just nodded. Looked at Thomas. "Mr. Fletcher, anything else?" Thomas's lawyer whispered something to him. He shook his head. "No, Your Honour." Judge Wilson removed her reading glasses, folded them, set them on her desk with deliberate care. "I've reviewed the medical evaluations," she said. "I've reviewed the financial records. I've listened to testimony from both parties." She looked at Thomas. "Mr. Fletcher, power of attorney is a privilege, not a right. It requires trust, good faith, acting in the principal's best interest. You've violated that trust." Thomas opened his mouth. His lawyer touched his arm. He closed it. "The evidence shows Mrs. Fletcher is fully competent," the judge continued. "The evidence also shows you've used the power of attorney to control her assets for your benefit, not hers. You've institutionalized her without medical necessity. You've isolated her from resources and decision-making authority. That's not care. That's exploitation." She picked up her pen, signed something. "The power of attorney is hereby revoked, effective immediately. Mrs. Fletcher's full autonomy is restored. She has the right to live where she chooses, manage her own finances, and make all decisions regarding her care and property. Mr. Fletcher, you'll return all of Mrs. Fletcher's property, keys, phone, any documents or belongings within 24 hours. You'll provide a full accounting of all financial transactions you've made on her behalf. And you'll vacate any claims to her house, car, or other assets." She looked at me. "Mrs. Fletcher, you're free to leave the nursing home at any time. If they give you trouble, have your lawyer call me. Understood?" "Yes, Your Honour. This hearing is concluded." The gavel came down. One sharp crack. I stood there, my legs weak, my hands gripping the table. Free. The word didn't feel real yet. Brennan touched my shoulder. We won. Thomas was staring at me, his face pale, shocked, his lawyer gathering papers, whispering something about appeals. I walked toward the exit. Thomas stepped into my path. "Mom, wait." I stopped. "Can we talk?" he said. "Please." "We just did, in front of a judge. I know I made mistakes, but I was trying to protect you. You were trying to control me. I thought you couldn't manage. After Dad died, you seemed so lost." "I was grieving. That's different from incompetent." "I see that now." He reached for my hand. I pulled back. "I'm sorry. I really am. Can we fix this?" I looked at him. My son, my child, the person I'd loved more than anyone except Robert, the person who'd taken my house and my freedom and my dignity and called it love. "No," I said. "Mum, you put me in a cage. You stole from me. You made me invisible. You don't get to say sorry and have that erased. What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I want nothing from you. Not your apology, not your help, not your concern. Nothing." I walked past him, out of the courtroom, down the courthouse steps, into April sunlight that felt like a baptism. Brennan followed. "Where to?" "Greenfield Manor. I'm getting my things." We drove in silence. I looked out the window. The city looked different, brighter, more possible. At Greenfield Manor, I walked in through the front entrance. No one stopped me. Why would they? I'd never been a prisoner, just a resident who couldn't leave. In my room, I packed my suitcase, the same brown one Thomas had packed for me 6 weeks ago. I added my coat. The blue one felt in the pocket. The tampon box from the bathroom, contents intact. A staff member appeared at the door, Janet, the one who tried to get me to do chair yoga. "Mrs. Fletcher, is everything all right? I'm leaving." "Oh, well, you'll need to fill out discharge papers." "No, I won't. Hospital policy. I'm not in a hospital. I'm not under arrest. I'm a free citizen and I'm leaving." I picked up my suitcase, walked past her, down the hallway, past the activities room where Lillian and I had sat, past room 207. Empty now, someone else's room already. In the lobby, the director tried to intercept me, something about forms, liability. I kept walking. Brennan held the door. Outside, spring air, flowers in the neat beds, the maple trees budding. Freedom smelled like cut grass and car exhaust and possibility. "Where to?" Brennan asked again. "The cottage, if it's still available." "It is." I had Sarah put a hold on it, just in case. The cottage sat 20 miles north of the city, small white clapboard, blue shutters, 50 yards from the ocean. I'd found it online during one of my covert computer sessions, small enough to manage, beautiful enough to matter. We drove up the long gravel driveway. The real estate agent met us there, same woman who'd called Thomas. She handed me the keys with a smile. "Congratulations, Mrs. Fletcher." I opened the door, stepped inside. Hardwood floors, stone fireplace, windows facing the ocean. Empty, waiting, mine. That evening I sat on the cottage porch and watched the sun set over the Atlantic, orange and pink and purple. Robert would have loved this. The thought came without the usual stab of grief, just gentle acknowledgement. My phone rang, the new one Brennan had gotten me. I looked at the screen. Thomas. I let it ring, then silenced it, blocked the number. He called 4 more times that week, left voicemails. I deleted them without listening. He sent letters. I returned them unopened. Emily called, my granddaughter, 19 and fierce and smart. "Grandma, Dad told me what happened. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, honey. He said you disowned him." "I revoked his power of attorney. That's different." "He's really upset, I know." Silence on the line. Then, "He deserved it, didn't he?" "Yes." "Good. Can I come visit?" "I'd love that." She came the next weekend, brought groceries, wine, stories about college. We sat on the porch and watched the ocean, and she asked questions I answered honestly. About Thomas, about the nursing home, about what it felt like to be invisible. "I won't do that to you," Emily said. "When you're older, I won't. I know you won't." She asked about money, how I'd afforded the cottage. I told her about the lottery ticket, the trust, the will leaving everything to her. She cried, then laughed, then hugged me so hard my ribs creaked. "You're a badass, Grandma." I'm 79 years old and tired of being nice. Good. Don't start now. 6 months later, I sat on my porch and watched November waves crash against the rocks below. The cottage had taken on layers of life, books on the shelves, dishes in the cupboard, a quilt Robert's mother made draped over the couch, pictures of Emily on the mantel. I'd hired help, a woman named Maria who came 3 times a week to clean and cook meals I could reheat. Not because I couldn't do it myself, because I chose not to, because having help wasn't the same as being helpless. My hip still ached when storms were coming. I still moved slower than I had at 50, but I moved on my own terms, in my own time, in my own house. Thomas had tried to reconcile, letters, phone calls, Emily relayed. I'd listened politely and said, "No thank you." Some bridges you burn on purpose. Some relationships end not because of what someone did once, but because of what they revealed about who they'd always been. I didn't hate him. Hate required energy I didn't want to spend. I just didn't need him, didn't want him in my life. That was enough. Emily visited once a month, sometimes more. She'd started law school, said watching me fight had made her want to fight for others. I'd put her through school with the trust money. No strings, no control, just love. The trust had funded other things too. A donation to Greenfield Manor in Lillian's name. Money for better activities. More staff, comfortable chairs. I couldn't save Lillian, but I could make things better for the people still there. I'd also funded a legal clinic specialising in elder law, free services for seniors being exploited by family members. Brennan ran it, I stayed anonymous. The Morrison Legal Clinic. They'd helped 30 people in 6 months, revoked 18 powers of attorney, stopped 12 nursing home placements, recovered over $2 million in stolen assets. Lillian would have approved. On the coffee table sat the lottery ticket in a frame, not because of the money, because of what it represented. The moment I stopped being a victim. The moment I chose to fight. Next to it sat the revoked power of attorney. Also framed, a reminder of what I'd escaped, of what I'd overcome, of the legal weapon my son had tried to use to erase me. Both documents hung on the wall now, beginning and end, loss and recovery. I thought about the questionnaire I'd filled out at Greenfield Manor during my first week. The one asking about depression, about thoughts of suicide. I'd lied on it, said I was fine. The truth was I'd been drowning. Not because of age, not because of capability, because someone had decided I didn't deserve autonomy. Now I was 79 years old, owned a cottage by the sea, had $36 million I'd barely touched, had a granddaughter who loved me, had a life I'd chosen instead of one chosen for me. I thought about the women reading this, the ones who'd signed powers of attorney because their children seemed concerned, the ones in nursing homes they didn't choose, the ones who'd stopped fighting because fighting seemed selfish. Listen to me. Your silence isn't kindness. It's abandoning yourself. Your compliance isn't love, it's erasure. Your yes when you mean no isn't keeping peace, it's giving away your life. You're 70, 80, 90, not dead, not incompetent, not invisible, just old. And being old isn't a surrender. Fight. Even when it's hard, even when they call you difficult, even when you're tired, fight because you matter, because your choices matter, because the years you have left belong to you. I learnt that at 79. Some lessons come late, but late is better than never. The sun was setting, orange light on grey water, wind carrying the smell of salt and seaweed. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Thanksgiving next week. Can I bring friends? I smiled, typed back. Bring whoever you want. It's your house too. Not because I'd given it to her legally, because I chose to share it, because love wasn't control, love was open doors. I set the phone down, pulled the quilt around my shoulders, watched the ocean. Tomorrow I'd go to the farmer's market, buy flowers, make soup, read the book I'd started. Simple things, chosen things. Next week Emily would come. We'd cook together, laugh, tell stories, build the kind of family that didn't need power or control, just presence. But tonight I sat alone in my cottage by the sea and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Whole. Not because I had money, not because I'd won, because I'd stopped waiting for permission to be myself. The waves crashed below, the wind picked up. Inside, the cottage was warm. I was 79 years old. I'd fought my own son in court and won. I'd walked out of a nursing home with my head high. I'd bought my freedom with a lottery ticket and my courage. And tomorrow I'd wake up in my own bed, in my own house, and decide for myself what kind of day it would be. That's not revenge. That's not bitterness. That's dignity. And dignity, I'd learned, is something no one can take unless you hand it over. I stopped handing it over. So can you.